of forest land in the Northeast Kingdom. And I also have a family farm that I run. So if you have any questions regarding either forestry or farming, I could do my best to answer them.
Great. Could you just tell me your name one more time? Because I didn't start recording until after you said your name.
Sure. My name is Paul Szwedo.
Great. Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks. Reeve, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Reeve Basom, and I work for a nonprofit called the Center for an Agricultural Economy, which is based in Hardwick, Vermont, and supports our local food system in a whole variety of ways. My particular role there is as the place-based education coordinator. So I have some crossover between the world of agriculture and education.
Awesome. Thank you. And Sara.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sara Domina. I'm here representing Hannaford Supermarkets. So hopefully everyone has shopped in our stores before. So I'm kind of representing all of our Vermont Hannaford stores except for 3. So that's about 14 stores throughout Vermont. So what I do is I'm a recruiter right now for retail, but typically my permanent role is an assistant store manager in one of our stores.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. You were given some questions, and we have some students on the call. So students, you are able to ask questions through the chat, and you can introduce yourselves to each other through the chat. If you could just pop your name and your school, that way our speakers will know who they've gotten from where you are, and then you can all see each other's names. You've all been muted, so any questions you have will come through the chat, and we'll remember to keep the chat open for questions and answers. And that way we can pay attention to what our speakers are saying. Would one of you like to start with some of the questions? Do you want me to ask the questions that you were given? Maybe we can start generally with, how did you get on the path that you're on? What were your interests in middle school and high school that brought you to this pathway? And we can start with you, Sara.
Cool. So I actually started working for Hannaford on my 17th birthday. So I started part-time on the front end in the Enosburg store. And I actually did that while I was in high school. It wasn't my first job, but it was my second or third job that I held. And so it was a job that I could have. I played sports in high school, and I was a part of a lot of activities. So it worked really well with my schedule. And I went to college in New York State, so I was able to take an educational leave while I was away, and then come back and work on school breaks. So I kept working for Hannaford kind of all the way through. And I did leave Hannaford after I graduated with my degree. I pursued a career in the mental health field as I have a psychology degree. I did that for 5 years, and then I came back to Hannaford and chose to pursue a career path with Hannaford full-time. So I've been back with Hannaford full-time since 2014.
Awesome. That's a nice long Hannaford career already.
Yes.
Great. Reeve, what about you and your middle school, high school pathway to where you are now?
Sure, and I see that a question just popped up about the organization I work for. It's called the Center for an Agricultural Economy. It's a food systems nonprofit in Hardwick. So feels like there's a lot of ways of answering the question about the pathway that brought any of us to where we are. I could talk about what I was interested in studying in, what kinds of job opportunities I explored. And there were, so I guess to quickly answer those things, I was interested in science and education. I majored in anthropology in college. I did a bunch of teaching outdoor ed programs and after school programs, and working at summer camp where there was an emphasis on community building and farm education. So all of those kind of learning experiences were important and helped me end up where I am right now. But I think no matter what resources or opportunities you have access to, something that we can all do to kind of create some momentum along a path is really invest in building relationships wherever we are, and being willing to show up and meet people and be curious no matter what we're doing. That's something that no matter where we come from and what level of privilege or resource we have, it can really help set you up to be connected and to be to kind of have the openness and curiosity to set you on a path forward. So that's what I would say.
Great, thank you. Thanks so much. Paul, how did you get set on your pathway?
So my father was a forester, and then my grandfather and my uncle were both farmers. I spent a lot of time in the Adirondacks growing up, and I kind of cultivated my love for the outdoors. And, you know, that's what you know, kind of drew me in that direction, and why, you know, I'm a forester today.
Great, thank you. What would you say? So we're with middle schoolers today. What would you say to someone considering the field that you're in, some kind of agriculture or food systems field? What are the what would you say to them if they're facing some kind of skepticism, as there's you know, not the future they might want, or any kind of skepticism that family or parents might offer or share with them about your field, uncertainty possibly?
I would encourage them to spend as much time in the field as they can. Reach out to a local farmer or forester or a logger and see if you can shadow them or work with them. And the more exposure you get to those folks who are doing it professionally, I think the more you'll learn, and, you know, you'll learn some of the more intimate details about maybe what the earning potential is and some of the challenges that we face. And I guess that would be my suggestion: as much exposure and spending as much time in those fields as possible.
Great, thank you. And Reeve, same question.
Yeah, Paul, I really love that response. I think that it's really true that community members are so much more excited and interested in welcoming young people into their world to sort of support them or help them explore career opportunities than I think a lot of us realize. And there are a lot of adults in your school who would be excited to help you make those connections. You just have to kind of make sure that you let somebody know that you're interested in that. And then the other thing I would say, as far as, you know, folks who might be skeptical about a career in agriculture or food or forestry, there are a lot of resources that exist in our state to support those, you know, the folks who are working in those careers. And if you if you can invest in learning about and staying aware of and connected to those resources, there's actually a lot of support out there for making sure that that new farmers are well supported, that farmers who are interested in shifting towards more sustainable practices have support in doing that. So that's one thing to think about. And then I also just, I think it would be interesting also, in response to any skepticism, to have an idea of how your values line up with what you are considering doing. Like, why is it? What do you care about? what do you have to contribute to the community, and what's important to you that this career is in alignment with. So maybe it's not going to be the most lucrative, the biggest paycheck, but maybe it'll be something that has value in other ways, and being able to talk about that.
That's great. I think, and Sarah, I want to hear from you as well. And I think both of you speak to kind of an interest for and a passion for certain kinds of work and certain kinds of things that you do on a daily basis within your work. And I want to get to that. I want to talk about the day-to-day and the likability, and we all want jobs to be lucrative, and that can take on a lot of forms. That can mean a lot of different things. So Sarah, what about you and the work, and talking to someone who might wonder or be skeptical about your work?
Yeah, so I really like all the responses that I've heard so far, and I just want to piggyback off of what Reeve said about really digging deep and finding what are your values and what's important to you, because those are going to be things that will be important in terms of what career path you go down, and you're going to have to make sure that whatever career path you follow is in line with the values that you uphold. So one of the reasons that I have been with Hannaford and I stay with Hannaford is because of the values that Hannaford has. So some of those are care, teamwork, courage, integrity. I'm missing one, but there's one more. So those very much align with who I am and what I believe in. And Hannaford supports our local communities. That's something that I believe in too. So for people who are skeptical about whatever career path you want to go down, I also want to just encourage the being curious. Be curious. Now is the time to be curious. And knowledge is power, right? So the more you know about things and the world around you, the better informed your decisions can be. So I would just encourage you to reach out to somebody who's doing that career path. I know if somebody reached out to me and wanted to know more about what I do on a day-to-day basis, I love what I do. So I'm happy to share that piece of me with somebody who's looking to get into this field. Part of this field is, working in a grocery store. It's not for everybody, and I certainly understand that, and that's okay. But for the people for me, when I was in middle school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. But what I did know is that I wanted to work with people, and I wanted to do something that was going to help people. So working at a grocery store, the pandemic has showed us that we're essential people during this challenging time. But also I definitely connect with the mission and the values of what Hannaford represents. So that's why that's important to me. And I do feel that there are multiple ways that we help our communities other than just selling groceries. So that's what I would say.
I think it's great. I love all of your answers, because I think there's so much more to work and career and working than the paycheck. Or I think one of the things that I think about a lot is students and people really thinking about the environment they like to work in. Like, do I want to be in an office? Do I want to be in something that changes on a regular basis, like out in the woods or on a farm? Or even though there are routine, consistent chores and jobs that have to be done in anybody's job, does it change enough, or is it routine enough for what students like and what employees like? I love that you talk about the philosophy of a work team and the beliefs of the company that you're working for. I think it's extremely important to be on board with people's values and philosophy of life. So there's a lot to think about. I remember a student that we worked with who just wanted to be an EMT, loved everything about it, went out on the first run and thought, there's no way I want to do this. It's, it was a little bit more intense than I think they had thought about. So getting experience and shadowing or talking to someone who does it is extremely important when you're able to make that experience happen. We have a question from Emma, who's curious about culinary arts. And I don't know if any of you have experience with culinary arts, and if you do, is it hard to do? Like, what's involved with being in the culinary arts?
So I can answer some of that. So we have several stores in Vermont that actually have kitchens, partial kitchens or full kitchens, which is kind of a new element in the last 5 years. So we certainly, our kitchen managers are not all people that have a culinary background. Some of them have come from the restaurant industry, and that is very helpful. But we're kind of like, our kitchens are very much like a restaurant meets grocery store. So it's made to order items, but with Hannaford, everything has a standard practice. So every food item that we prepare has a specific recipe. So in terms of training, we train people on how exactly we're supposed to be making everything. So Culinary Experience is helpful in those areas, in kitchens or in delis, because we do made to order sandwiches, salads. In kitchens, we do pizzas, we have a stir fry station, we have a hot foods bar, we have our salad bar. So that experience is helpful, but if you want to develop a career within our kitchen department, it's not something that you absolutely have to have, it's just helpful.
Anyone else, Reeve or Paul, have?
Emma, I don't know what the.
There you go. Oh, I think you just muted yourself.
Hey, Emma, I don't know the answer to your question, but the fact that you've been wanting to do it and that you love the work you're already doing that's connected to me is an awesome place to be. Try out culinary classes if you have access to those, and discover what it is that what it is that you love about it, or maybe discover some things that turn you in a new direction. But I think that whether or not something is difficult is not necessarily a reason not to try it. I think the combination of being challenging and rewarding is like the best combination for a work experience. That's why I love what I do.
Thank you. I think that's great advice from both of you. I think what I understand of culinary is it can be extremely intense depending on the place where you work. Could be high pressure, but it's also very highly rewarding, and it could be less intense depending on where people go. But it's an amazing culture. I think people are pretty tight who work together in a culinary situation. You have to depend on each other. So it seems extremely rewarding, and it's really neat that you're thinking about how you want to pursue that by going to Stafford and then to Necky. So good for you. So if you have another question, just go ahead and pop it in the chat. And so for the speakers, we'll start with you, Paul. Does your work make a difference in your community? And how can the next generation entering the workforce make a difference on the job?
I don't want to get too altruistic here, but yeah, I think it has huge implications for how we affect our community and the world around us. You know, managing timber at the landscape level. You know, we promote clean air, clean water, promote soil health. You know, a lot of the goals we have are regenerating new forests and new trees. And we make sure that we have, you know, the best science, put the best science forward and best management practices to achieve those landscape level goals that really do affect everybody. And then to the second, what was the second part of your question?
The second part is how can the next generation entering the workforce make a difference on the job?
There'll be some common themes, I think, running through here, but passion for what you do, you know, will help, you know, make you want to go to work every day and make a difference. And I think, you know, in in agriculture and the natural resources and forestry. You know, basically everybody that I've ever known in those fields is really passionate about it, and mostly because it does make a true difference in the community.
That's awesome. Thank you. Sara?
Yeah, so there's a lot that Hannaford does to contribute to its local communities. We have a very good, solid relationship with the Vermont Food Bank and its affiliates, because usually our local food shelves are affiliates of the Vermont Food Bank, which their main offices are in Barre, Vermont, I believe. So all of our stores donate multiple times a week food product that is not maybe doesn't meet our quality standards, but is still safe for human consumption. So we donate food product constantly to our local food shelf and Vermont Food Bank. Above and beyond that, Hannaford will donate money or goods or our time to local charities. So for example, you know, I might be working in the Essex Junction store. Charitable organizations might come forward asking for us to donate money for a fundraiser for a specific charity or donate goods. And so those are things that we often do approve, and we'll give gift cards, we'll give food items, whatever is needed. And in some cases, you know, if there's a race that's happening in our local community and they approach one of our stores, there have been times where the store will do like a food tent to give out like bananas and yogurts and bagels to the runners if it's a running race. So that's us donating our time to our local community. The Vermont City Marathon is another one that Hannaford is a huge sponsor of every year. So we donate food for runners at the end and some giveaways, and all of the associates that do that, they volunteer their time. They're not getting paid, so they volunteer their time to do that and hand those out to runners. There's a lot of other things that go into that too. But even just this year, we donated, I believe it was $125,000 to Hunger Free Vermont for food insecure families over the summer months when students are out of school, so that they had different areas around Vermont where they could have meals for folks. We've donated money directly to the Vermont Food Bank. We've donated money to, I think, Vermont Refugee Resettlement Program or organization in the Burlington area. And the other thing that I like about working for Hannaford is that we support Pride initiatives in a big way. So year after year, I've seen the Pride events that happen in Burlington every September. Hannaford usually has a float or walks in the parade. And we've had leaders all the way from our home office, people that come from out of state to walk in our Pride Parade in Burlington, and a mixture of store managers, assistant store managers, to the 1 day a week hourly associate, donating their time to really represent Pride. And then Hannaford also you'll see stickers on our entrances of the doors to our store where it says, I think it's 9 years running, we've gotten a score of 100 on the Human Rights Equality Index, saying that Hannaford is one of the preferred places to work for the LGBTQ community. So we're really proud of that, and I'm proud to be a part of a company that stands for that. So those are some of the things that we do to support our communities, and some of the reasons I am proud to be with Hannaford.
Thank you. I think it's great. I think I live in Essex. Funny you mentioned Essex Hannaford. That's where I shop all the time. And Hannaford has always been very generous with Essex High School sports events and parades, and Hannaford is always involved in the community. So I see that firsthand. Thank you. That was great. Great answer. Reeve, anything about community service? It sounds like you've got community service written all over your position.
Well, I would start with our organization, the Center for an Agricultural Economy, has a whole variety of programs that are all designed to strengthen our local food system. So that ranges from owning and operating the Vermont Food Venture Center, where food business entrepreneurs can come and use our shared use kitchens to make their product before they may have the resources to set up their own commercial kitchen for their business. There's also a suite of services to support farmers and food business entrepreneurs with business planning and marketing. We also have a distribution program to help small local farmers get their products out further to be sold. We have some loan programs to help people in the food system access funds that they need in emergencies or for equipment. We have a program that buys veggies from local farmers, small local farmers, and minimally processes them for sale to larger Vermont institutions. So that's creating a supply chain from small farmers to large institutions and keeping it local. We also have a community space with community gardens, community orchard, farmers market. So building a community commons there for people to gather and engage in various aspects of food and community. And then I work in partnership with the schools to really bring community-based, place-based education to as a priority for transforming our school systems. And that looks like a lot of different things. But I just also wanted to mention that in addition to all of that, we are constantly trying to stay sort of humble and curious to make sure that we're listening to the community and finding ways of listening more deeply and more broadly to understand what the real needs are and not just assume. And also to make sure that the programs that we're designing aren't just impacting certain people and not having the impact that we desire. So I would say that's been a really important piece of our organizational identity for a while is maintaining that learning stance. And one of the really important significant learning edges that we're trying to lean into now is understanding how food systems and food justice and racial justice and climate justice are all interwoven, and looking at the ways that we need to learn more and shift and develop our organization around that learning.
Fantastic. You all of you do such great work. And Vermont's such a great place to do work with the communities. I just am really grateful. We have a question from Andrew for Paul. Paul, Andrew wants to know, what level of schooling or education do you need to be a forester in Vermont? How much of your forestry work is outside? And can you give an example of what you do in the forest on any given day? So let's talk about a day in the life of Paul.
Sure. So at a minimum, Andrew, a bachelor's degree from an accredited college. So the Society of American Foresters has accredits different institutions, and that's basically the baseline for a trained forester. At the state level, we're starting to see a lot of almost a master's almost being required. I think just about all of my colleagues, and including myself, have master's degrees in forestry. But in order to get started, I would say a minimum would be a bachelor's degree. I would say 60% of my work is outside, which is maybe less than what you would expect. 40% is spent planning. We review a ton of GIS data. We do a ton with GIS. There's a lot of planning that goes into selling timber and managing timber. Some of the things would be analysis of that property or that forest block. We look at things like wildlife habitat, significant ecological resources, soil type, composition, and all of those things, we do analysis on, and that kind of guides our management. So I'd say at least 40% of our time is spent in the office and on the computer. So every day is a little bit different. I guess some of the processes that I would go through to manage a parcel of land, if we were going to harvest timber, I would spend some time outside in that block doing some inventory collection, which we call timber cruising. And I would analyze those data, do a ton of mapping and looking at all of those different resources that I mentioned. Then we would finally go out and mark trees for sale with a specific goal in mind. And then I guess we would supervise a logging operation and hopefully we'd get a good outcome in the end. So every day is pretty different, but that's generally, what I do at my job.
That's awesome. Thank you. And so when we talked the other day, you'd said that you go out, when you go out to the woods, you are also working with loggers to sell that wood. So
yeah, so usually we will sell wood on a high bid process. So we'll put out basically a prospectus that talks about all of the conditions in that forest block. It includes volumes by species, and we associate a minimum value with those species and the volumes, and a logger or a logging contractor will bid according to those statistics that we put out. And then generally speaking, the person who bids the most money for the timber gets the job. And then we'll work closely with them while they harvest and market the timber. So
that's awesome.
That revenue goes back into the general fund for the state Land and Facilities Trust Fund, and funds, things like trailheads or forest roads, or, things that help Vermonters, gain access to the outdoors.
It seems, there's a lot to it. You're a little bit outside, a lot outside, a little bit inside administering things, with administration. You're collaborating with other people in the business, selling, and it seems like a lot to it. So it wouldn't be the same every single day. Sounds like you do something a little bit different.
Yeah, there's quite a variety.
Yeah. So I have two more questions, and then I'm keeping the chat open to see if anyone else has some more questions. But so two more questions that I have. Do your jobs allow for a flexibility in work schedule or duties? And it seems like, Paul, for you have multiple duties that allow you to do different things at different times, but they all coordinate together to make something happen. Do you work a 9-to-5 day? Are you able to flex your work around your needs, your family needs, the seasons? Like,
as a state employee, there isn't a ton of flexibility in terms of my work schedule, but I do have a very regular schedule, which I appreciate. And I guess when I leave work, I sort of leave it there. Before I worked for the state and before I went back to graduate school, I managed a hardwood sawmill, and that was basically 10 to 12 hour days, 5 days a week, with a half day on Saturday and a drive-by on Sunday. And back to what we were talking about earlier, I took a pretty big pay cut to go back to graduate school and also to take this job with the state. But, my passion for what I'm doing and that lack of stress, and it's hard to kind of wrap your head around it as a teenager or middle schooler, but, the benefits that the state job provides are invaluable. Great healthcare, a pension, 401k, things that are boring and very adulty, but really have value when you get a little older.
absolutely. And that is the next question that I'll roll into. I want is the compensation packages for the work you all do, like beyond compensation. what else does your organization offer? But I want to go to Sara and Reeve about the flexibility and work schedule, and then we'll go back to compensation. Sara. Sorry, I see you on my screen, so let's go with Sara.
Perfect. So with Hannaford, depends on kind of the job that you have at any of our stores. So we hire part-time, 0 to 20 hours a week, part-time flex for us, which means like you will have a guarantee of 30 to 38 hours a week. And then we have full-time, which is based on 40 hours a week in any given department. Full-time comes with a comprehensive benefits package. So that includes medical, dental, a 401k with a match of 5%. That's, again, very adulty, but that's one of my favorite benefits. There's a paid parental leave. There's short-term disability, long-term disability. We offer pet insurance. That's really important if you have animals. We have an eye plan, and then we have HSA. So we have a couple different options of medical plans. All of our associates have additional benefits through the Hannaford Rewards program that we have at Hannaford. So that translates to more savings on your grocery bill every week, every month, every quarter. That's important. And then all of our associates have access to our employee assistance program, which provides resources for things like legal counsel or mental health counseling or other maybe employee discounts. We might get a discount on AT&T if you have that as your provider for your cell phone bill. So there's lots of different perks associated with being full-time with Hannaford. So compensation, it really depends on what you're doing. So we don't really advertise our rates of pay or our ranges of pay until we're at the point of making an offer to someone. We pay depending on experience, and we try to be as good about the pay as we possibly can. What I think gets some people is that, people have this perception, oh, it's just a grocery store, anybody can do it. Well, to be honest with you, not everybody can do it. It's a very physical job. You're on your feet 100% of the time that you're on shift. So if you're part-time, you could be getting a 4-hour shift, but full-time, you'd be getting 8.5-hour shifts. So it's important that you understand that a lot of our jobs you're on your feet. There's no Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, 8 to 5. Our busy times are weekends and evenings. So that's really the availability that we're looking for from people. So there is that flexibility in scheduling because we're open 7 days a week. So a day in the life for me as an assistant store manager. So again, as an assistant store manager, there's days you're going to be in charge of the store. There's days that you might not be in charge of the store, that you might be in a department working in deli or working in the produce. So it's important that, for me, I like that because I like doing different things from day to day. And certainly, like Paul, no 2 days are alike in the life of retail. One day comes with a set of challenges. The next day, it will be a different set of challenges. Being able to adapt, problem solve, and be quick thinking on your feet are extremely important when you're getting into a leadership role. That being said, so Hannaford, in terms of jobs, it can be just a job. It can also be a full-blown career track if you want to get into management. So there's lots of opportunities to grow and develop your career with Hannaford. So it's really whatever you're looking for. We have those opportunities. You just have to be willing to do the work.
Awesome. It sounds like there's a lot of opportunity in both of those jobs so far. Lots to do and a lot of variety. Thank you. Okay, Reeve, what about your flexibility of work schedule and job duties?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that we have, on our panel, some really different kinds. I mean, we have a company, we have somebody working for the state. I work for a nonprofit. We don't actually have well, Paul, you said you're also a farmer, but I'm just thinking about how I don't want to leave out that just an awareness of that there's a really particular lifestyle that farming looks like for a lot of people. So I'll speak to what it's like to work for a nonprofit. And my experience there has been that there is quite a bit of flexibility. When I arrived, there was a job description that I have since kind of built and helped it evolve, and had a lot of flexibility and creativity to design my own work in a lot of ways as I learn about how I can be most impactful as a community partner working with the schools. And that includes, having the flexibility to kind of identify the things I want to learn more about, or need to learn more about, and identify partners for collaborations, identify project ideas. So it's one of the things I really love about my job is the flexibility and room for creativity and collaboration. And also part of that is that I have to kind of make a case for the work that I'm doing because it's largely grant funded. So I have to work on telling the story in a way that will make people interested in supporting the work that I do and that we do, so that we can continue to fund the position. So that's also an interesting, it keeps me kind of on my toes and honest, and continuing to need to look at is the work that I'm doing worth funding, and how do I talk about that? And in terms of benefits, because we're a small nonprofit, although we've been growing over the course of the years I've been there, there aren't as many of the same kinds of benefits that you might see at a state job or a corporate job or for a larger company. But we do have, I think the organization is interested in continuing to look for ways that it can provide more benefits to staff. We do have some health benefits, and we have we have combined time off. So that's something that we all earn at the same rate and can use in the same way. But I would say that the thing that popped into my head first about benefits was that we have this really awesome staff culture. And that to me is of huge value. Loving to go to work and really appreciating the people that I work with and the way that we are invested in kind of like building a trusting and dynamic and innovative staff community is a really, really amazing benefit of being part of the organization that I work for. And I actually think it's a benefit to the community as well. We sort of export that when we do our work with other people.
That's great. It's also important, and there's so many multiple faceted reasons why people choose to work where they work or the careers that they love, and working with a group of people that you're happy to be with and you look forward to working with and contributing to your community is so important. And it sounds like all three of you have that. And it's a tremendously important thing. And we always balance, right? We balance a compensation, and that can take many forms. It can be compensation of good coworkers along with a strict compensation package as far as salary or wage and benefits. And it's really, for the students, it's really important to look at all of those things and figure out for yourself, what is important to you in a compensation package. Do you need to set yourself up in some of those things? And I would talk to people in your community. I would talk to adults and people who are working that you know and are comfortable with, and ask them about those values and those important things, and help you to figure out for yourself what is important in a work environment. And I really wish the students could be talking with us right now, because I'm really curious as to what, what does Andrew like about the woods, and what does Emma like about working in that restaurant? Like, what is it about those things that they really enjoy? And, for some, it's just the contribution of being part of something. I mean, my daughter works at my daughter's 18, works at a chocolate company, Snowflake Chocolates in Jericho. And at first was extremely nervous because it's a very family operation. And the woman who hired her at first said, if you fit into the family and if you fit with us, we'll keep you. But if you don't, we might let you go. And it's not because you're doing anything wrong. It's just that we're a very familial group of people, and we want you to be comfortable and fit as much as we want to fit for you. And she was just a wreck when she started working, because it was like, what if they don't like me, and what if I don't fit? And immediately she fell into line, and this is now like a second small family. So it's just she fell into line with their chatter, their work ethic, and she just loves working there. So I think it's important for the students listening to not only does your employer want you to fit, but you want to fit with your employer, and you want to fit with their philosophy and the way that they do business and the way that they treat their employees and staffing. And it's really important to know too, a corporation or a state job and a nonprofit job. I mean, like Reeve is saying, nonprofit jobs, you have to show your value to the funders. And that's kind of a job in of itself. And that's a different pathway. So it's, I'm loving the conversation, and I'm learning a lot. Are there any last minute thoughts that the panelists want to share, that our guests want to share today, or any last minute questions from students before we sign off?
I might just add that as your life changes, sometimes, what you require in a job changes. I was working as a researcher after graduate school for the Forest Service and for the University of Maine, and was in a similar boat to Reeve in that I was on soft money constantly, writing grants, and, the benefits weren't great in terms of, healthcare and those retirement type packages and things. And then, my wife and I decided we wanted to, start a family and have a kid, and that, made a big difference in terms of what we needed in stability. And that, is what made us, move to Vermont and take this job and move from a community we really loved in Maine, and do something different.
That's great. Great point. Thank you.
I just wanted to add something also. So anytime that as a student, you get a chance to shadow somebody in a job career or job path that you're interested in or want to know more about, I absolutely recommend it. And I say that because so often I do some interviewing, not all the time, but that's part of what I do right now. And so often I can explain a job description through and through, backwards, forwards, up, down, sideways. But until somebody actually sees the work that we do and they do hands-on things, you don't really fully grasp the breadth of what we do. We sell peas and carrots, we sell groceries, but there is a lot of work that happens behind the scenes that people don't see. So it's a business, it's a successful business, and retail doesn't sleep. We still have people that are working overnight, stocking shelves, and there's a specific way everything has to get done. So it's really, really important that if you get those opportunities, just take them. So I just wanted to emphasize that. And then speaking about money, so money is important, but it's not everything. So if there's anything that I can give as a takeaway, you really need to think about what you want to do and where your passions lie, because you might have a job that's high paying, but the culture might not be something that you like. And it's the culture that's either going to make or break a job for you or a career for you. So it's important to think about why am I interested in this? What is it about this job that I like without the money?
Exactly. Great advice. Reeve, any last comments? Thank you, Sarah. Thank you.
I guess I'm just thinking about how, in addition to whatever you're doing for work or spending most of your time doing, I think there's a lot to be said for being connected to your community in other ways. I'm thinking about how all of the other things that I do outside of work really do help me feel more invested in my community and make my work feel more meaningful, make me feel like I can do a better job in my work. So just getting connected to the place you're in. No, and there's so many ways of doing that, but kind of, yeah, being engaged as part of your community, whether it's through your job or in other ways outside of your job. I just would want to put in a plug for how valuable that is as you're thinking about your future. It's not just about career, it's about being engaged with your community. And that that engagement will lead to opportunities, and it will lead to skills, and it will lead to relationships that kind of create sustainability and joy in whatever you're doing.
That's fantastic. Thank you. All great advice. Thank you all for joining us today. I think we're about ready to close out. I just want to remind you that all of the videos that people have put together for Career Connects are on our website. I'm going to put that in the chat. And this presentation has also been recorded, and that will also be available in the Career Connects section of vsac.org. Thank everybody for attending today. I really appreciate the candid conversations. It's a lot to think about. And I think probably one of the most important things is for students, we're out here in the community and we really love to engage with conversation. We want to welcome you into our workplaces to ask questions, whether it's in person with a mask and at this particular time or virtually, but we really are here as a wide group of community members to help you determine the things that you love to do and ways that you can be out in the community learning those things and figuring out your pathway. So thank you all for coming. And I don't think we're going back to the big group, so you can sign off when you would like, and I'll stop recording. And thanks again. Really appreciate your time this morning.
Hey, really nice to meet you, Sarah and Paul.
Yeah, likewise.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good week.